The Battle of Jena-Auerstedt. When Napoleon defeated Prussia in a single day. Did you know that in a single day, Napoleon Bonaparte managed to defeat two Prussian armies simultaneously on two separate battlefields? This astonishing feat became known as the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt, which took place on October 14, 1806. It was the day when Prussia's arrogance collided with the military genius of the French emperor. Today, we're diving into a story full of strategy, chaos, rivalries, and turning points for Europe. So get ready to travel back in time and discover how one day sealed Prussia's faced hand solidified Napoleon's dominance over the continent. 1. Historical context. To understand the impact of the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt, we need to go back a bit in time. Since 1803, Europe had been engulfed in the Napoleonic Wars, a series of conflicts between the French Empire and various coalitions of European nations. In 1805, Napoleon had already defeated Austria and Russia at the famous Battle of Austerlitz, one of his greatest victories. France seemed unstoppable, but a new challenger was looming: Prussia. Prussia had been a respected military power since the time of Frederick the Great. However, by 1806, its army was stuck in outdated 18th-century tactics, bright uniforms, rigid formations, while Napoleon revolutionized warfare with speed, mobility, and centralized command. Prussia hesitated for a long time to join the war against France. But in September 1806, pressured by allies and fearing loss of influence, it finally declared war on Napoleon. What Prussia didn't expect was that Napoleon was already prepared to strike first. 2. Napoleon's plan: he assembled his Grande with over by Boschers, 0 soldiers, and marched into enemy territory with surgical precision. His strategy was classic Napoleonic brilliance: divide and conquer. He knew the Prussian army was scattered and poorly coordinated. If he could strike before they regrouped, he'd have the upper hand. On October 14th, everything was set. But what happened next was almost unbelievable. 2 separate battles occurred on the same day, with French forces facing 2 different Prussian groups, and winning both. 3. The Battle of Jena at Jena. Napoleon believed he was facing the bulk of the Prussian army. He was wrong. In fact, only around 40,000 Prussians were present there, under the command of General Hohenlohe. Nevertheless, Napoleon brought nearly 100,000 troops into the fight, including elite infantry and cavalry units. The battle began in the early morning. A thick fog covered the field, making visibility difficult. But Napoleon, ever attentive, positioned his troops on high ground, using every advantage available. By midday, the battle was virtually decided. The French launched a full-force assault, and the Prussians, unprepared and poorly led, began to retreat. It was a complete rout. Hohenlohe's troops were scattered, and the road to Berlin was left wide open. What Napoleon didn't know was that just 20 kilometers away, another equally decisive battle was raging without his knowledge. 4. The Battle of Auerstedt. While Napoleon was fighting at Jena, Marshal Davout, one of France's most disciplined and capable commanders, encountered the actual main Prussian army, around 65,000 soldiers, led by Duke of Brunswick and King Frederick William III. Davout had only 27,000 men. On paper, it was a battle he should never have won. But Davout, with exceptional courage and organization, used the terrain to his advantage. Positioning his infantry defensively and deploying artillery with surgical accuracy, the Prussians, overconfident due to their numbers, attacked carelessly. The Duke of Brunswick was mortally wounded early in the fight, and the Prussian command descended into chaos. By the end of the day, Davout had defeated an army more than twice the size of his own. It was one of the most impressive victories in French military history. When Napoleon heard about the outcome, he couldn't hide his surprise and, for the first time, admitted that Davout was truly a marshal worthy of Caesar. 5. The aftermath. The Prussian defeat was total and humiliating. Around 25,000 Prussians were killed or captured in a single day. French troops marched triumphantly into Berlin, which fell without resistance. Napoleon entered the Prussian capital as a conqueror, imposing reforms and heavy sanctions. He even took the famous Quadriga, the bronze statue atop the Brandenburg Gate, as a trophy of victory. The once feared Prussian army was shattered. The Prussian nobility was in shock. Many officers realized something had to change. This defeat triggered deep military and social reforms in Prussia, which would later be essential to the unification of Germany. And Napoleon, who's at the peak of his power. The Battle of Jena-Auerstedt solidified his control over Central Europe. But as with every meteoric rise, the top also marked the beginning of the fall. Conclusion: the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt was more than a military victory. It was a clash of errata, end of old Prussian warfare, and the peak of Napoleonic innovation. Two battles, one day, and an empire shaken. But history was far from over. Prussia would rise again, and Napoleon would eventually face a renewed and reformed enemy. At the famous Battle of Leipzig and, finally, at Waterloo. War, like history itself, is never static. So, what did you think of this epic battle? Leave a comment if you had heard of it before, and let us know which other historical battle you'd like to see featured on this channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more incredible stories from the past.